Blessings and welcome to the Path to Freedom podcast, a weekly and practical podcast with the intention to assist us as we walk along the paths of freedom and awakening, so that we, that is you and me, may set ourselves free to be in ever-expanding love and joy and peace and harmony and wholeness and abundance, so that we may set ourselves free to transform our lives over and over and over again, so that we may set ourselves free to forever allow for greater and grander expressions of who and what we are to emerge. All of this regardless of external conditions and circumstances, and with ever-expanding ease and grace. My name is Daniel Roquéo, and I'm your host. Blessings and welcome to the Path to Freedom podcast. My name is Daniel Roquéo, and as always, I'm grateful. I'm grateful and I'm thankful that you're choosing to join me, that you're choosing to tune in to a moment of expanding our consciousness, in a moment of raising our vibration through exploration, as this podcast is all about. This weekly and practical podcast about just that, about awakening, about what it means to be walking this path of freedom, this path of awakening. Some of the things that we get to move through from my perspective, from my point of view, from my point of life. So although everything that I'm sharing here is unique for me, we all pretty much go through the same things. We all pretty much have the same kind of lessons to learn. Some of them are about releasing and letting go, about trusting, about surrendering. Some of them are about learning to cultivate self-love. Actually, all of them. Actually, all of them are about releasing and letting go of something, some notion, some belief, some perception, some point of view, some story that we have bought into, that we have entertained, that we have held near and dear for a long, long time or for a period of time. But all of this is about releasing and letting go. That is actually how I define healing, the releasing, letting go, or the dissolution of that which obscures the light of God, the love of God, the peace of God, the harmony of God, the beauty of God, to be revealed in ever greater and grander ways. So this is a journey of healing. I call it the path to freedom, or the path of freedom. Others call it the path of awakening, spiritual awakening. There are other names for it as well, but we're all talking about the same thing, about us waking up to who and what we are, discarding, tossing away, releasing, letting go that which is not in alignment with that who and what. So, today's episode is about just that. It is about, I believe the topic for this particular episode is I release, I let go, I trust and surrender. And this is once again a continuation of the profound process that I am in of shifting, of allowing for healing to happen. It's like I've been pushed into the chrysalis. I've gone through the metamorphosis. I am going through the metamorphosis, and the butterfly is about to emerge. But there's a lot of, as the butterfly emerges, it needs to squeeze itself out of the chrysalis. If the chrysalis was to break completely open so that the butterfly could, if it could, fly its way out of there, it would not be able to fly, because its wings, from what I've heard, are filled with water. So it needs to squeeze itself out of the chrysalis. It needs to squeeze its way out of the cocoon. So to squeeze away the excess water that it is retaining. And that's kind of where I am right now. I'm squeezing away the excess stories and beliefs and perceptions that they may have served me in the past, but they no longer do in any way, shape, or form. So there's a beautiful space of releasing and letting go, but it's also a space of, it's quite challenging to be here. Not in the sense that there's a lot of turbulence, but that which is about to be released and let go, it just won't go. It lingers, and I constantly am being pulled back into habitual ways of thinking, not of doing, but of thinking. And so to bring some more clarity around this for myself, this is what this episode will be about. But as always, before we begin, let's move into a moment of stillness, a moment of silence, a moment of meditation, and a moment of prayer. So to anchor ourselves in the nowness of this moment, to step out of time and into the eternal. So as the meditation music begins to play, I invite us all to make ourselves comfortable. I invite us to close our eyes and put a smile on our faces. I invite us to take a deep breath in and release that breath. Another deep breath in. And release it. One last time. Deep breath in. And release. And as we turn our attention to the breath, let's be aware that the body, first of all, is fully capable and able of doing the breathing by itself. So we do not need to make the breathing happen, or we don't even need to participate in the breathing, but we can simply observe it and witness it as it happens. And also we want to be aware that the body, actually each breath has 4 stages to it. There's the in-breath, the space between in and out breath, the out-breath, and the space between out and in-breath. And you want to be particularly aware of that last stage, the space between out and in-breath, as that is oftentimes where our attention gets sidetracked, it gets pulled away from the breath, it gets pulled into time, it gets pulled into conditions and circumstances. But being mindful of that space, sort of honing our attention or making our attention laser-like in that space, allows us to sustain our attention there. So taking on the feeling tone that all is well, right now, right here. Let's give that peace that follows permission to move us deep, deep, deep into the stillness and into the silence. Then placing our hands in our lap, palms facing upward and thumb and middle finger touching as a sign of receptivity. Drifts away from the breath. Just gently and lovingly turn it back and begin again. Let's come back to the breath and begin again. Let's come back to the breath and begin again. Let's come back to the breath and begin again. Sigh. In a brief moment, move us into prayer. Invite us to remain with our eyes closed, our minds open, our hearts open. Perhaps even bring that smile back to our faces. And so in this moment, profoundly grateful I am to be here, to be now, in this moment, for this breath, for this heartbeat. Profoundly grateful I am to get to live this life that I get to live, this wonderful, beautiful life that I get to have. That I get to be who I am, that I get to be where I am, for who I'm becoming, for that which is emerging in as and through me into this life. I'm grateful to be on this path of freedom, for the ever-expanding freedom that flows into my life, into my experience, for the ever-expanding joy and the harmony and the love and the abundance and the wholeness just becomes more and more and more and more and more. grateful for the ease and grace with which my life flows, for the love and grace of God, its benevolence. I'm grateful for this podcast, for this recording session, for all of you who are tuning in, regardless of when you're tuning in, where you're tuning in from. I'm grateful that you are tuning in. I'm grateful for your participation. I'm grateful for your co-creation for this infinite, eternal field that this podcast is creating, has created, will continue to create. Recognizing God as the one mind, the one power, the one love, the one presence, fully present in every space and place, always being itself, doing itself, completely unable of compromising itself or contradicting itself or holding anything back or diminishing itself, but always expressing itself both fully and freely, as well as beautifully and perfectly, being all there is, being all spaces, all places, all beings, all objects, all moments, omnipresent, omniscient, omniactive, omnipotent. And as God is all there is, it means that right where we are, whenever, wherever we are, all of that which God is, we are. God is what we are, and we are what God is. God is we are. No diminishment, no obscuration, no separation, no division. But each and every single one of us is a unique, perfect, whole, and complete emanation of God. We're one with it. Whatever we want to call that it, we're one with it. Just like the wave is always one with the ocean, just like the sunbeam is always one with the sun, so are we always, always, always one with God. It means that we are blessed, which means that we are a blessing. We're blessed with the peace of God. We're blessed with the love of God. We're blessed with the harmony of God. We're blessed with the creative faculties that God has. With the same freedom that God is, we are blessed with. And as God is all that there is, and as God is good, it means that all is well in every single moment, regardless of whether or not we can see it or feel it or know it. As God is the only thing that is happening, and as God cannot go against its own nature, which is good, which is benevolent. As God is always for itself, it means that everything is always for us. So whatever we're moving through, whatever challenges we may be facing, they are but gifts and blessings of transformation, stepping stones upon which we can move to higher levels of consciousness, higher levels of vibration. We're not victims of anything unless we make ourselves victims, unless we choose ourselves to be victims. Just as we choose ourselves to be victims, we can choose ourselves being out of being victims. We can choose freedom. We can choose peace. We can choose harmony. We can choose love. We can choose joy in every single moment. So I'm blessing us all, every single one of us, knowing that there is only actually the one, only one of us. So I'm blessing us, knowing that all is well, that something wonderful is happening, that everything is working for the highest good, simply because the only thing that is happening is God. I release it, I let it go. I give thanks for it, for this and so much more. I allow it all to be. So it is, so be it, so shall it be, so we are, and so God is. Amen. Amin. Ashe. Ahu. Hotep. Shalom. Salam. And hallelujah. All right. So I release and let go. I trust and surrender. That's the big theme of my life right now. If you have been following this podcast, I have been sharing these last few weeks how I'm moving through a beautiful space of healing, how I'm moving through a space of healing, of releasing, letting go of my habitual and incessant tendency to want to make things happen, to engage myself in doing, taking it upon myself to be responsible for the manifestation of my life and for the unfoldment of my life and for all of the things that are coming into my life. I'm taking it upon myself to make it all happen. So I've been exhausting myself. I've been running just to fit my own schedule, just to be in control. And I'm beginning to realize, or actually I have realized, that this is not how I want to live my life. But what is coming up in meditations, in my prayers, is that I want my life. There are two things that are coming up. First of all, I want to be of greater service than I've ever imagined. I want to be an ever-expanding point of healing. I want to be or actually, I don't want to. This is my calling. This is my mission here. To be an ever-expanding point of healing, to be a greater teacher and healer than I've ever imagined, to have my life be about being of service, assisting, touching, moving, inspiring, empowering, uplifting individuals in waking up, in transforming their lives as they move along the path of freedom. So that's the one thing, me being of service. The other thing that is coming up over and over and over again is that I want to be of service, but I need my every cell in my body, every fiber of my being is yearning, is longing to live a simple, peaceful, and quiet life. A simple, peaceful, and quiet life. Which means that I need to release and let go of my tendency to want to make things happen, of my tendency to leap into doing, to fill every single moment of my waking day with some kind of doing. There are moments when this is easy, and there are moments when this is pretty darn hard. I mean, there's years and years and years of habitually engaging myself in doing. So my mind is absolutely racing pretty much all the time. And the moments when it's easier to release and let go of the doing is when I'm anchored, when I'm present in the nowness in this moment, when I get to observe the mind rather than be pulled into it, rather than being run by it. But my mind is racing and it's trying to figure out. So here's a paradox that I became aware of. Was it yesterday or the day before? So the way for me to release the doing, and a beautiful metaphor, and what keeps guiding me is a passage from, it may be the Bible or it may not be, I don't know, but it's I refer to it as the lily on the field consciousness. And the passage goes that the lily on the field, it spins not, it toils not, and I'm adding to that it struggles not, it efforts not. And yet, going back to to the reference, and yet it is so beautifully clothed. It is so beautifully provided for. And if we look at nature, nothing in nature is struggling. Nothing in nature is efforting. Nothing in nature is trying to make anything happen. No tree is trying to become something. No animal is trying to reach a certain state or become something that it's not. But everything in nature is so infused, it is so immersed in the loving grace of Spirit. And what that loving grace means is that Spirit is always giving of itself. There is no withhold in Spirit. There is no no in Spirit. There is no denial in Spirit. There is no delay in Spirit. But Spirit, as God is all that there is, and as God is always for itself, it is in God's highest interest to support every aspect of its creation, to source, fuel, and fund every emanation of that which God is, every expression of that which God is. So it is only in our human minds, at least here on this planet, it's only in the consciousness of humanity that we experience stress, that we experience anxiety, that we experience depression, that we experience, and perhaps some animals, pet animals that are close to humans, that are sort of in the field of the human consciousness, to the extent that the human consciousness sort of takes over their natural consciousness. But look at have you ever seen a depressed butterfly, for instance, or a stressed out rose, or a river trying to become something else, or a tree efforting to just make it through the winter? My guess is that you have not. I certainly haven't. So I'm leaning a lot into nature to learn what it means to be in that lily on the field consciousness. To have my intentions, to be open, to be available, to be receptive, but not be in the state where I think that I need to make it. I was waking up this Sunday, and I was waking up with so much stress. I had a long list in my mind, a long list of things that my mind perceived that I had to do on a Sunday. Sundays are days off. I don't usually work on Sundays, except for perhaps a brief moment before everyone else in the family wakes up. I have my morning practice, and when I'm done with that morning practice, it's about an hour of practice. When I'm done with that, if no one else has woken up yet, then I can be moving to some sort of creative doing. But I was waking up on Sunday, having this long list in my mind on things that I needed to do, and I was so stressed. I was so stressed all day. I observed that this was so. I witnessed this, but I was still feeling the stress. And out of that, later on in the afternoon, I had a beautiful conversation with a dear friend. And a little bit before that conversation and during that conversation, I realized that, or actually I set the intention for myself to not ever, to the best of my ability, but not ever engage in doing unless I'm anchored in God, unless I'm anchored in being one with Spirit, unless I'm anchored in the absolute knowing that all is well. And actually, out of that conversation arose a beautiful question that I've sort of forgotten, that will sort of guide me, because one of the challenges that came up for me on Sunday was that I was not completely able to discern always whether the action that I wanted to take, that my mind wanted me to take, arose out of inspiration or out of a sense of I should or I have to or I need, which all have their basis in a sense of lack, separation, a sense of fear. Fear of not making it, fear of not getting there, fear of not having all my needs met, and so on and so forth. So I was having a challenge discerning where my wanting to do came from. And so the question that arose that I became aware of in this conversation was that if I asked myself, if I absolutely, or actually, as I know that all is well, right here, right now, as I know that I'm one with God, as I know that all my needs are met, do I still want to do this? Do I still want to move into this action? Do I still want to leap into the doing of this, whatever it is? And if the answer is yes, then that's inspired action. If the answer is no, I would not do it, then I need to go to work in my consciousness. It might be something that I need to do. I mean, there are stuff that we need to do. I need to attend to my kids' needs, and I need to prepare dinners or lunch. I need to, there are things that we need to do. So I'm not in any way, shape, or form advocating to be completely passive couch potatoes where we do absolutely nothing. This whole world revolves around doing. But the question is, where is that doing coming from? Where are we in consciousness when we leap into the doing? And so I'm in a beautiful process of releasing and letting go of that kind of doing that is based on fear, that is arising out of a sense of lack and separation and scarcity. To trust and surrender, to trust that God has got this. Spirit has got this. Spirit is at the back of everything. God is everything. So and Spirit being omniscient and benevolent, God knows exactly what needs to happen, when it needs to happen, how it needs to happen, for the highest possibility for every single one of our lives to come into, to flow into, to transition into this dimension. Those highest possibilities already exist in the infinite mind, so they're not new. We're not creating them, but we are allowing for them to come forth. But God knows exactly what needs to happen and when it needs to happen. So I need to trust that. And from that space, I'm able to discern whether or not my leaping into action, my doing, arises out of a sense of not trusting, or if it arises out of a sense of trusting and thus a sense of inspiration. So there's and in this, it may have been last week's episode, or it may have been in some other space that I heard myself speak. I heard myself say that this healing that is happening now, this transformation that is happening now, it's the most profound transformation that I've ever gone through. This is my whole, kind of like the caterpillar. And I've used that metaphor many times, and I've had that experience many times of moving into the chrysalis, going through the metamorphosis, the transformation, the change, the shifting, emerging as something else. But I don't think I've ever been in a space where I'm so completely transformed. I have absolutely no roadmap. I have absolutely no experience of living life from this trusting and surrender, this lily on the field consciousness place. It's like I'm learning to walk all over again. But before I can walk, I need to learn to crawl and to creep. So I'm learning it all over again. It's beautiful, but it's also kind of unsettling, not knowing, not having the slightest clue, the slightest idea as to how this is gonna play out, and who will I be when I emerge. What is my life going to be like when I emerge? I know that it's going to be even better. I know that this is something beautiful happening, that this is something wonderful happening. I know that everything is working for the highest good, but my mind tries to wrap itself around the house of it. So I get to really practice coming back to the breath and beginning again. Taking a deep, conscious breath, which creates that space between me and the incessant mind chatter, which allows me to take a step back, observe, witness, not identify, not attach myself to it, not be pulled into it, not be run by it, but simply observing and witnessing. And from that space, I get to be with it. Like, oh, there was another thing that I have never experienced before along this path, at least not to the extent that I did on Sunday. I have not ever had a substance abuse or substance addiction or anything like that. So I don't really know, but what came to me was that this enormous stress that I was experiencing, it was a physical sensation. My body or my mind wanted to move into doing. My soul, my heart wanted me to be still. And in that, it felt like actually the term that came to me was a spiritual withdrawal or doing withdrawal. It was like the body was physically reacting to not being able to do. And this was especially clear to me in the moments when I was completely still. So there were moments when I just sat on the couch or lay down on the couch and did not move at all. And in those moments, it was like my whole body was filled up ants. It was like I felt like a worm, squirming and trying to get out of the grip of the bird's beak. It was quite an interesting, not at all pleasant, but kind of an interesting experience to be in that space. So I need to come back, and this is a reminder to myself. I need to anchor myself more, to come back to the breath and begin again, to come back to the breath, begin again, leaning into my conversations with both God and Danny, asking God for help, reminding myself of what God is, who God is, my oneness with it, and also acknowledging Danny and finding ways to soothe his racing mind, to soothe and encourage him to release and let go of his habitual need to leap into doing, to do. That's how he has survived. That's how he has got as far as this in life. Not through trusting, not through surrendering, but through doing, through believing that and acting from the notion that if he don't do it, it's not going to get done. That it's up to him to make it happen. He's had years and years and years of practice in living life this way. So of course he's having a challenge releasing, letting this go. It's a matter of his survival. It's a matter of his survival. But the intention is set. The highest possibility for me in my life already exists in the infinite mind. It is God's greatest pleasure to give me and every single one of us the kingdom, which simply means that we get to rest. We get to rest. We get to relax. We don't need to make anything happen. We don't need to effort. We don't need to struggle. It is not up to us. We're eternally sourced, fueled, and funded. God is the only source and supply. And we can trust God in caring for us, in holding us, in embracing us, in providing for us. It's like, I don't know if I shared that story last week. There's a story about the ego versus God. The ego says, the ego says, show me God and I'll trust you. Meaning that the ego needs evidence. It needs to be able to see before it can trust. Whereas God says, trust me and I will show you. Consciousness always precedes form. Consciousness always precedes form. So we need to take the first step. God is not going to come down, swoop down and save us. But we need to do the work. We need to put our trust in the hands of God to the best of our ability. And I'm not saying that we are to jump off a tall building without a parachute. Not literally and not metaphorically. That's not at all what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that step by step, we get to expand our trust. We get to ask ourselves, what is it that I wish my life to be about? Am I completely content and happy and in peace in this hamster wheel? And I'm not saying that all of our lives are hamster wheels. For my own life, I'm beginning to realize that my life was a hamster wheel, even these last few years. Actually, I knew that. So I'm not beginning to realize, but I'm beginning to give myself permission to move out of it. Give myself permission to move out of it. To lead and live a simple, peaceful and quiet life. That is what I want my life to be about. Not about the efforting, not about the struggling, not trying to make it, not working hard, not working long hours, none of that. The lily on the field spins not, toils not, efforts not, struggles not. Nothing in nature is involved in a fight, is involved in a struggle, is involved in efforting, in trying to make it. But all of nature is involved in a beautiful state of surrender. Instinctively, intrinsically, inherently knowing. It's not a conscious choice. It's just in that state of consciousness where it knows that all is well, where it knows that all of my needs are met, that everything is working for the highest good. When it's my time to go, it's my time to go. And whatever shifts and changes that happens, like the oak tree, or any tree for that matter, they don't resist when the storm comes, or when the storm hits. They don't resist the snow or the hail or the rain or the scorching sun. They don't resist any of that. They're so anchored in the nowness of this moment, having no thought about any future moment at all. Not even the squirrel or the predator on the in the forest or on the savannah. Nothing in nature acts from a fear of some future moment. But the squirrel, needing to gather nuts, to collect nuts for the winter, it just does it. And it does it joyfully, it does it celebratory, it does it rejoicefully. It has no care. It has no worry as to whether or not it'll be able to collect enough nuts. And yet, most of them make it. Most of them make it. So why, if nature is so beautifully provided for, by simply surrendering, by simply trusting, why can't we? And this is a rhetorical question. Of course we can. Of course we can. Life is not a it's not a sprint. It's not even a marathon. It's not a race at all. It doesn't have to be. Many of us make it into a race, a sprint, a marathon. I feel as I've been running a marathon, and I'm I have crossed the finish line, but I'm still worn out. I'm still fatigued. I'm still exhausted by it, and I'm promising myself that I will never run a marathon like that again. I will not ever enter into a competition like that again. So we can trust. We can release, we can let go, we can trust, we can surrender. Allowing God to do its thing. Allowing Spirit to do its thing in us and through us, which is God's highest desire. That we get out of the way so that God may have full sway. I love this space. I love the opportunity to explore, to clear my mind, to gain clarity. In such a beautiful way. So I want to thank you, all of you, for participating, for contributing. We're not quite done yet. I'm going to pray us out, but I don't think I have any more to add to this conversation at this point. I think Spirit has said all that it needs to say. So I have no invitation for us, but I'm trusting that whatever has come through, that it has sparked insights, realizations, revelations. And we're always wise to whenever we have an insight, whenever we have a realization, whenever we have a revelation, whenever we come to understand something, we're always wise to lead that insight or realization, to let it lead us into some kind of transformation, into some kind of change, so that we begin to make different choices out of the inspiration that we've caught, that we begin to move from that expanded consciousness, not keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. As long as we do the same thing, our lives are going to stay the same. They're going to be the same. But if we want anything to change in our lives, we need to change. Like we talked about last week, we need to be the change. Maybe it wasn't last week, maybe it was something else, but it doesn't matter. We need to be that change. So if we want our lives to be different, we need to transform our ways of thinking. We need to transform our ways of doing, of moving in the world. So I'm going to pray us out, and then we'll be on our ways as beautiful, magical, magnificent, beneficial presences here on this planet at this time. So I invite us to close our eyes. I invite us to bring that smile back to our faces. How grateful I am. To be on this beautiful path. How grateful I am for the realizations, for the insights, for the transformation that is continuously happening. How I love that this is what my life is about, transformation. Ever-expanding freedom, ever-expanding joy, ever-expanding peace, ever-expanding love. I remember a time when I was so living in so-called blissful ignorance, when I didn't know, I didn't realize, I didn't get that I had a choice, that there was a choice available for me other than to keep doing what I was already doing. And now, from month to month, from week to week, from day to day, and from sometimes even from moment to moment, my life just keeps shifting and changing and transforming, because I'm continuously realizing and becoming aware of new choices that I can make, higher choices that I can make. So grateful that more and more and more my life is being lived from the nowness of this moment. And as every moment is a new beginning, when I live here, when I'm anchored in the nowness of this moment, when I'm centered in the nowness of this moment, when I've pulled myself out of time, out of past and present and future, I get to live life like that. I get to consciously begin again. I get to consciously choose to be reborn. Not out of chance or luck or happenstance, not out of being pushed to a space and to a point where I just have to make a change or I'll die, or I'll stop to exist, or I can't take the pain no more. That my life is not about that anymore. That I'm being pulled by vision, I'm being pulled by intentions. I'm being pulled rather than pushed by fear, worry, and doubt. Lack, scarcity, sense of not being enough, sense of not having enough. I am so grateful, so grateful. Recognizing that at the back of all of this is the one loving presence. That is every condition, that is every circumstance, that is every space, that is every place, that is every being, that is every object. That is the stillness, that is the pulling as well as the pushing. That is every cell of this body, that is every fiber in this body, that is every action and function and muscle in this body. That is the space in between objects, that is every object. Knowing that there's no space where I can ever be where God is not. There's no place that we can ever go where God is not. Where God is fully present everywhere, and it's all available. It is all available. As God only has an affirmative yes in it. Whenever we choose to lean in, whenever we choose to ask for help, whenever we choose to ask for guidance, God is right there. God is always right here. But when we make ourselves open and available, that's when God really gets to work its magic in us and through us. So I give thanks for knowing that we are one with the one. I so love knowing that there is no separation. There is no division. There is only absolute oneness. That we've always been one with the one. That we'll always be one with the one. Because God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. This oneness is absolute. It is not up for debate. It is not subject to change. It is not a little bit more at that moment than in this moment. No, God is always what we are. We are always what God is. So for this and so much more, I give thanks. I give thanks for the peace that is here, expanding peace that is here. For the expansion of love that is happening now. For the expansion of freedom that is happening now. For the expansion of harmony that is happening now. The expansion of abundance that is happening now. Knowing that all is well. Knowing that something wonderful is happening, that everything is working for the highest good, simply because the only thing that is happening, period, is God. The only thing that is God. And God is good. God is good. For this I give thanks. For this I give thanks. For this I give thanks. I allow it, and I say, Amen. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in, for participating. Until the next time, I bless all of our days, and I bless all of our ways. Much love and your blessings. Namaste. You've been listening to an episode of the Path to Freedom podcast with me, Daniel Roquéo. I invite you to like and subscribe to be notified when new episodes are dropped. And in between episodes, you can always find me on Insight Timer, the Aura Health app, and YouTube. Or you can visit my website, danielroqueo.com. Until we meet again, I bless your day, and I bless your way. With much love and many blessings, Namaste.